guys, what's up and welcome back to Cooking with Evie. My name is Yvette in case you're new here, and on this channel I like to make a lot of different recipe videos including vegan, vegetarian, and non-vegan items so that there's a little bit of something for everybody here. I also love filming grocery hauls and other miscellaneous videos. So if that sounds like something that you would like, make sure to go ahead and subscribe and join the family here. I am working to get to 100 subscribers, which doesn't sound like a lot to some, but to me it is a lot. Started out this channel with 40 subscribers at the beginning of the year and have now made it to about 87 subscribers. So I would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button and making sure to check out my other videos. Anyway, today I am going to be showing you how to make a cheese flan, and you heard that right. So this is a little bit different than the traditional flan in that the way I think about it is it's a hybrid between a cheesecake and a flan. Normally growing up, I didn't like flan. I thought the texture was just like a little bit too gelatinous for me, and I just really did not jive with that. But one day my cousin made me a cheese flan and I fell in love. It's so good. I think it's far creamier, obviously, because there's cream cheese in it, and it just tastes so much better. I love the texture, I love the sweetness, and that has been my favorite way to have a flan. So he showed me how to make the flan. It's very, very easy. This is like a super easy, very low maintenance recipe. So I think you can definitely make it at home. Please let me know if you do, because I want some. Want to see how I make that? Then just make sure to keep watching. All right, so before I get started on showing you what you will need for this recipe, I'm gonna start by turning on the oven so that it can preheat our oven to 350. I'm gonna get that preheating, and then I'll go ahead and show you what you're gonna want for this recipe. This recipe, you're gonna wanna have some cream cheese. This is a star ingredient of our recipe today. You're gonna wanna have sweetened condensed milk, 1 can of that, as well as evaporated milk, 1 can of that. You will want to have some vanilla. If you can get real vanilla, that's great. This is actually imitation vanilla today. One day I'll be able to get real vanilla, but not today. You'll also want some sugar for your caramel, and then you can use 4 eggs, but I actually like to use 5 eggs. You'll want to have a little mold for your flan, as well as a pan underneath it for the water bath that it needs. One more thing you will need is a blender to mix everything. Without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna get started on the recipe very quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and crack my 5 eggs into the blender. And I'll clean that up in a little bit. You just wanna be careful not to get any eggshells in there. Next, we are going to put the sweetened condensed milk. You can get any condensed milk that you like. I actually go with the generic brand because it works just fine to me. And we're gonna go ahead and pour that in. I recommend having a spoon so that you can scoop this out because it's a little bit thick, so you might not get all of that in there. So I'm gonna grab a spoon, go ahead and scoop this out, because there's quite a bit left in here. There's about close to 2 tablespoons out of there. Next, we are going to throw in our evaporated milk. We're going to throw in our evaporated milk. This is actually fat-free, but you can use any type of evaporated milk you like. Again, from any brand that you like. So just pour that in there. And then we are going to throw a little bit of vanilla. And I like to throw 1 to 2 capfuls. So there's 1. There's 2. That was a little bit more than 2, but either way, you get the point. All right. And then our final ingredient, you can use any block of cream cheese. If you like Philadelphia, go ahead and use that. Again, I am going for affordable here, so I did use the Great Value cream cheese, and that works just fine. And you're gonna throw the whole block of cream cheese, okay? Let's go ahead. And the best way that I find to throw it in there is by just ripping little pieces of cheese out, just little balls of cheese. and just rip it up and throw it in there. And next we're going to make our caramel, so I'm going to show you that in a second. Clean my hands real quick and then we're going to get this mixed together. Okay, so now that everything's cleaned up more or less, we're going to go ahead and blend this by pressing the liquefy button. So I let that run for about 30 or so seconds and you'll see it gets very well incorporated in that simple amount of time. I'm going to move you over to the stove so that you can see me make the caramel for the flan. Quick, before I show you the caramel, I'd just like to show you the water bath that you want to have for the flan. I'm just using a regular ceramic loaf pan here that I used for my other video. I fill this up about halfway. You don't want to fill it all the way to the top because when you're removing it, it will be very hot and you don't want hot water spilling on you. So I would recommend fill it up halfway, and what you do is you just put your little loaf pan right on top and it sits there having its nice little water bath. So I'm going to move you over just a hair so that you can watch me make the caramel for this. I'm going to move this, and my oven just gave me the go ahead for it. So I'm going to try to have that as close as possible so that you can see most of it. You want to just make sure to turn your burner on to pretty high. That way the sugar will be ready to melt. So I have a little scooper in my sugar here. I like to use brown sugar, but if you want to use white sugar, that's perfectly fine. It's about 2 tablespoons, give or take. So that's a pretty good amount. I'm going to put in a little bit more just because I want to. I want to make sure you have caramel. And this is the caramel that goes on the bottom of the pan and goes, you know, once you flip it over, it's actually on the top of the flan. So you kind of let this heat up a little bit and let it melt down. Give it a stir every now and again. It'll form clumps, but that's okay, not a problem. All right, so it's starting to melt, which is good. That's what we want. We're going to continue to stir this. You want this sugar to melt down, and it'll melt down fairly quickly. I recommend using a wooden spoon if you can, but since I already had my metal spoon to scrape the rest of the condensed milk out, I decided to use it, but it would be better to use a wooden spoon on these types of pans. So I'm being very careful not to scrape the pan. Just melting down the sugar. As you can see, it starts to slowly turn into liquid form. And that's what we want. You want to stir this quite off. Get a little bit of a burnt smell, but that's okay. As long as it's not completely burnt, you're perfectly fine. So it's almost done. There's a few more clumps here, so I just want to keep going till I melt that down. I'm going to turn off the heat because we're pretty much done, I would say, with this. And what we do next is we actually pour it. I hope you can see that there. We pour it right on top of our pan here, and you want to move fast because this kind of crystallizes pretty quickly. So just pour it on the top of the pan, and like I said, just move as fast as you're able because this does crystallize quite quickly. And a quick note, you're gonna want this to soak because the sugar will stick on it pretty hard. So not to worry, your pan isn't ruined, just leave it soaking. And then if you can, go ahead and try and spread it. But look, I'm trying to spread it now and it's pretty much kind of stuck on there, but let me try to make a circle as best as I can. But it's pretty much done. Before it's ready to go in the oven is that we pour the batter that we made in there. So we're just gonna pour that in there nice and easy. You see how liquidy it is? The cream cheese just dissolves in there very nicely. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this in the oven and we'll come back. You wanna leave this for about an hour or so. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in. Be very careful because this is quite runny, and we'll see you in an hour. All right, so it has been an hour. I'm gonna pull this flan out to see how it's doing. Okay, so far so good. You just want to be careful again pulling this out of the oven. Just from first glance, it looks like it needs a little bit more time, but I'm going to test it by putting in a toothpick and seeing if anything comes out. So I've got 2 toothpicks here. I'm going to go ahead and stick one in there. And it's actually coming out pretty clean. Let me go ahead and check out the rest. It's coming out pretty clean actually, so let me just test it out a little more. Yeah, I mean, it's not so bad. Not as bad as I thought at least. So actually, I am going to call it done. This is why it's good to test it. Even though it's not super crisp on the edges, it actually looks beautiful. It's good to test it with the toothpicks. I mean, a little bit came out, but it is pretty much done. What I would recommend now is that you just let it sit and just cool off. You don't want to make the mistake of taking it out and trying to flip it over. No, give it another, 30 to 45 minutes. What I will do though, is I'm going to take it out of the loaf pan underneath and then just set it on top of the stove to kind of cool off. Let me turn off the oven. So carefully, you want to just remove that. Just be extra careful and hold on. Just setting that right there. And then what you do is you just pour out this water here and we're good to go. So this has been sitting out for about 30 or so minutes. It's pretty cool to the touch. Put a little paper plate on top just to protect it from anything falling in there. I am going to go ahead and actually use this plate to plate it. And darn it, it stuck a little bit to the plate, so it kind of pulled up that layer, but that's okay. A little trick that I like to do is I like to use a toothpick that I checked it with to kind of slice around the edges and get the flan unstuck from the pan. So I'm going to just slice that on through. You could do it with a knife as well, but I don't like doing that much dishes, so I use the toothpick and it works out just fine. Alright, so we've gone all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and put that plate on top. And then this you just kind of have to do confidently. I get a little nervous sometimes, but you just got to kind of do it. You go ahead and grab it, make sure it's centered as much as you can, and then 1, 2, 3, you give it a flip. So after that flip, you can take out the mold and you have your flan right there. So it got a little bit off-centered. I'm going to put the lid back on and kind of try to slide it a little more to the center. If we're able, that is. Nah, it kind of wants to stay. It came out looking like the caramel is a little bit darker than I normally would have liked it. But what you do now is you want to, again, there's still smoke coming from it, so I'm going to leave it cooling just a little bit longer out here, and then once it's kind of cold and cooled off, I will go ahead and throw it in the fridge to chill for at least 2 to 3 hours. Thankfully, it's only like 10 o'clock in the morning, so I'm going to let this chill until the boys get home, and then I'll show you guys a slice.
So this is what the flan ended up looking like when you cut into it. I did give a couple slices to the boys, and that was my piece right there. You'll see canela there in the corner. And then I paired it with some non-dairy Ready Whip.
So I'm about to eat this. I paired it with some fresh strawberries and then put a little dollop of this Ready Whip non-dairy coconut milk whipped cream. And I am so excited to try it. Let me go ahead and just try a piece. Delicious. All right, so if you guys want to go ahead and try this out, let me know what you think. Take care, y'all. Bye.